archetypes are there for you to remember your own internal cycle, not necessarily, to send out your wants and desires. We're not like, oh, the Lord is going to grant my wish. No, honey, you're going to grant your wish based on what you'll decide to do and where your awareness is. You have to take ownership for your own experience and your own relationship to yourself. That's like really the biggest key. We're sort of in the season of having that heart open, and the mind expansiveness piece has been going on for so long, but the heart opening piece is what moves your feet. The heart pumps, the feet move. When the heart pumps, the body moves. And so we can live in our mind all day, but eventually you got to move your feet. It's time to get out of your head, stop researching, and move your damn feet a little bit. Because if you don't move your feet, nothing changes.
Are you ready for the divine feminine revolution? Let's get vulnerable and go deep.
Hello, and welcome to the Divine Feminine Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Megan Monday, and I'm here with the beautiful Nicole Concepcion. And she is an incredible artist, an amazing soul sister, a single mama, and an indigenous healer. So I know we're going to have the most amazing conversation. We were also mastermind sisters. And so this is also kind of a reunion for us. And as we were sort of chatting in the green room, it's probably been about 9 months since I filmed one of these podcast episodes. If you've been following along, you know that 2022 was a little bit of a hard year for me. My dad was in and out of the hospital for about 6 months, and I kind of went dark. We just released season 3, dark as far as like on social media there, not like in the literal sense there, but it's a little bit of a dark period. Let's be real, okay? I wish I had shown up, and just really gone vulnerable, but I also just needed some space to kind of integrate and everything. But so excited to be back. And, I think that this is sort of a rebirth. And it's been about 9 months since I filmed an episode. And I was so excited to see Nicole pop on my schedule. And you can listen to our original episode where we talked everything about motherhood, healing, raising kids, super powerful as we've been living through. And that was like 2020-ish. So
Yeah.
We've been through a lot since then, let's just say.
Yeah.
So, we're just going to kind of have a chat, catch up, and y'all get to be along for the ride and get to witness it. So, Nicole, I'm going to kind of turn it over to you for a brag intro. So just fill us in on what you're up to. And, you're such an amazing, powerful woman. Don't hold back. Give us a little bit.
Thank you. So, yeah. What I want to start off by saying is that, I spent probably a good 25 years of my career in human resources, operations, client services, client help desk, all of that. And I worked through a lot of different industries, from startups to local government, right? City government. And right around 2020, I ended a 17-year relationship. Actually, I started ending it in 2017. But as anybody knows who is trying to sort of weave themselves into a new life and saying goodbye to an old life, it takes a little while. It can take a little while. So I started weaving this pattern in 2017, and in 2020, I was in a place to open my own business where art and myself as an artist is front and center. And that's my brag, because that took a lot of courage. It's taken a lot of patience. It took a lot of trust. I have actually been an artist my entire life. And if I had a say in what I wanted to do at 18, I definitely would have gone to art school or something of that. Like, I would have been doing art this full time, basically. Not that I'm regretful, not that I have any resentment. I don't, actually. I feel like the winding road of the past and the journey that I've been walking has been exactly what it needs to be. I've learned exactly what I needed to know. I always took on positions that I was able to learn and be expansive and be around people who were good at being leaders or very good in their particular position or had a very, like, a specific mindset. that I was attracted to, that I wanted to, that inspired me and sort of like lit me up inside. So I had the benefit of really working with CEOs and executives that um, really were worth their salt.
Mm.
And we're very good at sort of exchanging that energy of teacher and student, right? So like they were willing to listen to the things that they didn't know, and they were willing to teach the things that they knew really well. So those dynamics have definitely helped me become an artist entrepreneur, is what I call myself these days. And so, yeah, I'm really happy to be here. Like, really learned how to cultivate my life and not just sort of survive it. So,
Oh, so much to say there. Well, I relate because I think, that whole like starving artist thing, I think definitely deterred me from the art as a career. And I always used to joke when I would do like expressive art therapy that I would get, that I was a paid artist because they were paying me for therapy, but we were doing art, which art is such
absolutely.
a huge, healing and transformational this, and your art is so like evocative and powerful. And I think there's no better time to be a professional artist. Like the tech and the internet and the platforms have really made it possible that we don't have to starve anymore. So that's good news.
Right. Well, and also, I'd like to just sort of like give the nod to expanding an industry that used to be very, very small and private. And it was like about asset building, and it was
Yeah.
very like sort of gatekeepy. And it's not that that still doesn't exist, because it absolutely does, especially when you're talking about like galleries, and you're talking even about, who is out here on YouTube, or, doing reels, or on TikTok, and who's getting the most views. You're still going to have this spectrum where, the more white presenting that you are, the more followers that you get, the more the algorithm is going to push your work. And so that is still in existence. But the capacity for those of us to reach people who are interested, like myself, who are interested in someone who is an indigenous practitioner, or who's someone who identifies with all of my ethnic, relationships, and is a woman, and is a living artist. Like, I'm a living, breathing artist of now. And having people who support that and finding those individuals is just has been it really brings me to tears a lot of the times, because I'm just like, "Great, I'm doing it. Like, I'm out here. Like, people like me." And what are they? I mean, not even that so much they like me, but like they appreciate my work. Like, they
Mm.
have a respect for the fact that I'm showing up in the world with this work. And that really is like been such an eye-opening experience, because like you said, I also, I'm Gen X. I come from a generation where baby boomers were constantly telling you, no, 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 you can't, you can't.
Dang boomers.
The experiences that they might have been for like a brief amount of time, when it came down to going back into parenting and, surviving, it was like very much still old world stuff that was happening. Like, it was being pushed on us. And it was like, I also was very much, you can't be an artist. You've got to have a backup plan. And, being in an office environment was the backup plan that I was sort of shuttled into, because that's, during the 80s and 90s. And I was considered one of those positions that you could always take with you. Was considered a position that you were always, basically, you could always make money, right? Having an office gig.
Mhm.
The downside of having an office gig, as you know, is that you spend your whole life now at the office.
And I'm
And
paying
so,
for both. Yes. Yeah,
yeah, it's like there's always work to be done, right? There's always work to be done. Like, being in HR was just like, I mean, yeah, I might only be working 8 hours, but like they would have had me there 10 or 12 if they could. I'm so busy. So you end up giving your life over for that. And so I just, this shift in mindset to be able to, that was interesting. Doorbell. Mindset to be able to really understand the worth aspect, and understand where, like, taking the ownership that I could actually cultivate this life for myself exactly how I wanted it, has just been, and that's something that I'm just like continuing to expand it. Like, it started as like a black hole. It just continues to eat all of the negative energy around me that was telling me no, or all my conditioned behaviors and mentalities. Just like it eats it up. And it's like, no, this is real. It just get to be even larger and even more creative. So
Yeah. And I can see it. I mean, it looks good on you. I mean, like I saw you sort of like as you were exiting, the marriage, and that's definitely a really thing to do, especially with you have 4 kids. Is that right?
I agree.
3. Okay, sorry.
5
3.
to 18.
3. Oh my gosh, that's quite an achievement in itself, right? And so I really relate living that kind of straight life, going for the security, and I often will say to clients, like, sometimes playing it safe is the most dangerous thing that you can do. And so,
Totally.
to take the risk to follow your passion and really make it a reality, like, it looks good on you. So that's
You
amazing.
know,
I'm so
that.
proud of you, especially like doing the single mama thing. Hats off to the single moms. What an incredible, spiritual practice and the strength and the conviction and all of that to make it happen. I really
Oh,
relate just in the sense that I've always wanted to write a book, and I remember, like, after grad school, like, getting books on, like, how to write a book proposal, and then what really deterred me was, like, will some agent or publisher, like, sign off on, "Yes, you're okay," and I think it was that, like, fear of rejection or just fear of sort of like you were saying, the system that's, like, the gateway or, like, the gatekeepers, I guess, kinda keeping you out, and so, like, now, you can self-publish and you can actually make money doing it, and so I think, while tech can have definitely some drawbacks, it also has, like, sort of liberated these, like, artistic and healing practices and given us a venue to kinda get it to the people, which is really amazing, so I'd love to hear more
absolutely.
about your healing because, I can talk about all day long, so tell us what you've been up to in that
Yeah,
realm.
that's it. I I call myself a creative curandera because I am a curandera. So I have a lineage of being a curandera from my grandmother and beyond. And so that is something that I was in a way born into. And we all have our specific gifts and it comes through the way that it comes through. But one of the reasons that I say that my artwork is also part of my devotion is because the portals that I create into that energy field and into the sensibility of where you can really utilize that for like the gazing aspect of your devotional life. So these kind of portals of energy and relationship are a practice of me doing healing work. And so I've got a couple ways, like I have collections that come to me that are sort of like burning to be burning to be on canvas and burning to be shared. And then I also have folks who come to me for commission work. Like they're actually going through maybe a specific scenario in their life or they're sort of in a period of transition. And so the artwork I create for them is allowing them to really expand into that transition field, like opening a door and allowing them to walk all the way through it.
Ooh, oh, I got, like, chills with that. Yeah. Yeah, what a symbolic representation of the portal that they're entering in, and, you've certainly been through your own version of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because, being so the equity of exchange that goes on when you're doing work that is really intimate and really grounded in not just our humanity, but our divinity, right? Like the where we would not to say that that's a binary, but just really understanding that there's just these various facets that we all carry energetically as beings on this earth, and then what we can actually transcend and tap into when we're fully present and expansive is galactic, in galactic in energy. So, but when I'm doing an equity of exchange with another human around this kind of work, it's very intensive, and so I tend to I take on folks seasonally, and they're really just by referral. And I only really take 3 or 4 clients a year. Very like it's like under the radar, but it is something that in a way such a part of my blood lineage in this particular like lifetime that it feels really good to be able to do that. And also I'm gonna say this. It also feels good to be able to do it in a time where I'm not like being chased by colonizers because I'm practicing something that's not part of the fucking government hierarchy, right? Or the put in politics. It also feels good to be able to do it openly, right? it feels good to be able to do it and not have my kids being like actively pursued because their mom is, on the spectrum of whatever witchery of the day was. So yeah, shout out to this time period where I'm able to sort of be very, very open about it in ways that even my grandmother was not able to be that open. Like kind of, but again, it was like, this kind of sort of secret referral process.
Do you feel like some of that fear or ancestral trauma, like the witch wound kind of vibe? And how have you been able to transcend that? Because I feel like that's a really common thing that holds healers back with visibility. I mean, obviously there's the like
Right.
piece, but then there's
Yeah.
also that fear of
Yeah. I think there's a couple different pieces. So I'm a genocide survivor culturally. And so, nothing really tops being a genocide survivor because, it doesn't matter what you do. I mean, they're coming for you either way. Like they're coming for you they want your resources and they want you to disappear. So, but I mean, so from that aspect, I mean, I was really helped into that from sort of an early age.
Mhm.
And, the secret that come along with being a genocide survivor around heritage or how you're practicing, or even, I mean, just the secrets come around in sort of all of the realms. And there's a difference between secrets and being private, right? And that was something that I had to learn. So when we're talking about sort of like moving through what people either call like generational curses or the generational trauma of being an oppressed people for, a multitude of seasons, many, many moons, right? Many, many grandmothers.
Mhm.
A large part of that was really just understanding the reality of it and then grieving the realities that, the women in my family have had to experience. And because this particular, I'll say my introduction to this particular type of practice is definitely from my matrilineal line. So really being able to grieve with the women who've had to grieve and go through these sort of levels of oppression in order to just be themselves. And also in order to share their gifts with the community that they lived in, the environment that they lived in, was really a huge piece of the process. And then once the kind of grief came through, it was like, oh, now I can kind of take the macro and look at my micro and figure out, what in the micro can I adjust? What can I do as a mother? What can I do mothering myself?
Mhm.
And what can I do mothering my actual children? Right. In order to then bring that to my devotional work so that when I work with some of my ancestors or some of my guides or some of my allies, then I can be really present. And I can also be very present to what they're bringing energetically with them and be like, okay, I want to negotiate here, but I don't need that. I've already kind of worked through that and I love you, but I don't want to, I don't want to bring that into what we're going to work on. Or if you're going to come and be an ally over here in this particular ceremony, or if there's something larger going on and I may need you to, help support me while I'm doing something front facing to stay protected,
Mm.
or to stay veiled to a certain extent, then let's meet here in this window of compatibility. And I love you for the other things. And so, I mean, some of my prayers actually, like, I mean, you and I were kind of talking about this as we were talking about the eclipse, is that I don't wish on every lunar phenomenon. Like, I'm not the one. Like, I love lunar phenomenon. I actually do follow the lunar cycle very, very closely, as well as some other cyclical things regarding the sun and the earth. But my default is typically to just kind of uphold the natural sort of chaotic process.
Embrace the chaos.
Yeah, just embrace the chaotic process that is and really just honor whatever's going on as an energy that I get to witness and be a part of. So I'm, in terms of that equity of exchange, it's, these things don't, the eclipse is not going on for humans to have a wishing ceremony. Like it's not,
Right.
it's something. And sometimes I feel like, you
And it's
know,
chaotic time. It's not necessarily the best time to do a ritual anyway, right? It's more of a portal.
it's just like, the lunar cycles are there for you to remember your own internal cycle. not necessarily, to send out your wants and desires. But I think humans get a little bit caught up sometimes because our ego likes to trip out. You know what I'm saying? And it's
Totally.
like we forget that these are reminders of who we are internally, right? We
Yeah.
don't have to, we're not, oh, the Lord is going to grant my wish. No, honey, you're going to grant your wish. Based on what you decide to do and where your awareness is. You know what I'm saying? So
And it's
anyway,
kind of more empowering if you really do just like fully embrace the creatorship that is within you versus, oh, it's up to the moon or the universe or whatever. It's like taking
exactly.
your own.
Exactly.
I will say, as we're filming this, we've got an Aries here. It is the new moon eclipse in Aries, which I think is a good new
Right.
beginning for us, powerful. When I really became
And then
aware,
today the sun is actually moving into Taurus. I mean, that's the shift, right? Like you've got these sort of various energies happening all together. And the sun in Taurus is great because Taurus is love a good time. And
sensual
they love
pleasure.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Luxuriousness and aesthetics is all about sexuality.
I really became aware of eclipses. I guess it would probably be around 2012 with the, sort of awakening, not only getting pregnant, but just I think many people had an awakening during that shift. But
Mhm.
really what brought my attention to it was working in mental health because, I've found that it does hold true the beginnings and endings and just general like emotional intensity and those kind of things do happen. Like already on my caseload at, breakups and new jobs and babies about to pop out and all the kinds of like new
Right.
beginnings and endings that happen. And so that's definitely it's kind of an intense time to be in mental health during some of these big shifts. But, I think I love what you're saying about just like really connecting to the rhythms and also just like reclaiming the power, I think is really, and working in harmony with versus giving your power over to something.
Right. Or expecting something outside of yourself to actually, just to sort of like, I mean, again, you have to take ownership for your own experience
Yeah, agreed.
and your own relationship to yourself, right? That's the that's like really the biggest key. And so, and one of the things that I find myself doing so much, especially at this particular age, is really helping other people navigate that process, right? Like really sitting in what looks to be what some people may even call, self-love. There's a wisdom keeper that I have an equity of exchange with that talks about radical self-love very often. And that is something that, so for me, when I hear the word radical, it's more that it's in that realm of activism. And so when I think about radical self-love, it really is, it's like your true form of humanist activism. How humanist can you be in an environment that is really trying to push your humanism away from the earth itself, which is impossible because we're actually earth beings. Along with lots of other earth beings. You know what I'm saying? Like I have a little, so it's cricket season out here.
Hmm.
And so there's all these little baby crickets just hopping around. And I have like my resident little baby cricket that's just been chilling on my
Love it.
hanging out. And I'm
Yes.
just like, oh, wonderful. I think that I don't know if they're called nymphs in the
Mm,
insect world when they're that
mhm.
young, whatever, but that's basically what always comes to mind. So anyway.
Mm. Yeah, we live out in the woods and we definitely coexist with nature. Like it comes in
Yeah.
waves, and I'm happy to, live with it.
Yeah. Well, it's nice sometimes to just kind of be like, oh, hey, what are you doing? Like, what cycle are you in?
Yeah.
Rather than, and I think, I mean, some insects definitely follow the spring cycle, right? Where they're just like, they're like starting to pop off, like the spring is coming and their height is in summer. And then by fall, they're being eaten by spiders, because like they come out and fall. Well, anyway.
And the really fun part about going more towards virtual is doing work where I can have like my cats are on screen, and we just got a new guinea pig. We got 2 pigs now. And so we have all these little support animals that are,
Oh,
they're
I love that.
beings and guides in their own right, to be a part of it. And
Absolutely.
it's nice to include them. And I do feel like they hold space. I have this one black cat, and she will like not leave my daughter's side when she's asleep, and she's the guardian, so
I totally get it.
yep,
I
yep.
totally get it. I also still have that I share space with cat guardians as well, because that's really what it is, right? There's no owning a cat.
Yeah.
And we don't believe in pet, but we don't have pet conversations about because everybody's an entity and everyone, is doing again. I've got 5 earth beings up in here and that I'm responsible for, right? That I'm responsible for because there's control of the 6 of us. But yeah, and everyone has their own personality. Everyone's got their own biorhythm. Everyone's biorhythm is shift. Like we were talking about, when it's eclipse season and new moon season, and when those happen together, those are also equinox seasons. So, you have this sort of energy here and now in spring, and then we'll have it again in autumn.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like with the winter solstice also, like you have these like bigger sort of like almost beams of energy that's present.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone is always adjusting to that. So like today, my youngest was a little bit crabby because it was a little bit of a different routine, and she was definitely feeling like, like wanting to rest but also wanting to like rush. And so that confluence of rest and rush, which is coming off of having a new moon in Aries and also having an eclipse. So it's like you've got fire energy rotating, and at the same time, you've got a block of fire. It's just like very, the push and pull was very, very interesting. With this morning. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I love, you hold space to own the need to rest, and I think that's where a lot of people on the sort of mainstream thing just push through, and if they're not aware of some of these cycles, it's just they may be attuned to something that's more like artificial and not based on their own rhythms and the earth's rhythms.
Yeah. And I think that's really true. Is you also, I think, especially in the early seasons where you're searching, like we all go through a period of search and research, right? Where we're expanding our awareness and we know that we're sort of on the cusp of something. And yet we still feel, we haven't learned to really look fully within ourselves to find the answers. And so you're sort of gravitating to that,
Yeah,
gravitating to that.
maybe
Now,
stuck in that
gravitation,
phase.
yeah. I mean, gravitation is great, right? Like we're all attracted
Yeah.
to certain things because that is going to help show us ourselves. But I think that's what that framework of mind that you want to keep is that whatever you may be attracted to right now, and whatever you find is a way for you to walk back to yourself, not
Beautiful.
to give yourself over.
Yeah.
So doing the searching and the researching, remember that it's always a place to walk back to yourself and get to know you best, right? These are just sort of, the mind likes efficiency, and it also likes to be able to see something concrete, right? So that it doesn't waver in a way. And so you can show it those things, but always remember that, at the end of the day, one of the things I always say is the mind really is a conduit for the essence in the body. And when you stop putting the extra pressure on the mind to fucking figure out everything, which is not really there to do, not there to do that, it's there to be a conduit for the essence in the body. So the mind has to be attuned and harmonized so that it's actually living the life that you're here to present. So
Beautiful. Well, I'm kind of wondering, I think the first time we did this, it was like 2020. Obviously, there was a lot of fear. I think that some of that fear is still around. There's certainly a lot of uncertainty. We're going through, world changes and whatnot. I'm just kind of curious, is there anything that you feel like would be enlightening or comforting that you would want to share with people if they're feeling like, what's going to happen next? Or are we going to be okay? Like the thing.
It's interesting in the sense that I think what I would say is that there's been such a emphasis on knowing, right? I mean, even now, the whole TikTok ban conversation in the U.S. within the U.S. government is really about how can we grab even more rights to all the background data and ISP networks. I mean, that's really what that's about.
Yeah.
But
It's more,
it's all
canvas.
about TikTok, but it's really when you look at the underpinnings of what they're really trying to do is they really want to have even more access than they have now.
Yeah. Monopoly. Yeah.
And it's kind of like when you think about it, it's like, what I'm always reminded of? I'm reminded of Princess Leia in Star Wars, where she was like, is that the first one? Where she was like, the more you tighten your grip, the more we will slip through your fingers. And if I just want to
True.
I just want to remind humanity of that. Like,
Yeah.
you can decide at any time to turn off everything in your house. And what are they going to do? You can decide at any time.
Yeah.
You can decide at any time to band together with people and really stand up for folks, just like they're doing in France, right?
Yeah.
Like you can decide to harmonize with other with other beings of humanity at any moment.
Yeah.
You can also decide that, I think it was Ice Cube, like, they already have us under surveillance. I might as well keep it gangsta. Meaning, I'm going to just say you what the hell I want to do, whether you listen to me or not.
Yeah.
I'm out here being me in full, right? I'm not going to dim myself because I'm afraid. So they're out here selling propaganda for fear because they're afraid. So once you start remembering that, because I think at the end of at the end of every day, you got to know that you feel okay with your life and the way that you're living outside of what is going on. And I say that as someone who's not being like actively oppressed right now. And I understand that that might not resonate for some people who are being actively oppressed in their daily life. I constantly have, so I live with the constant threat of oppression. And there's sort of like that umbrella of oppressive tactics, especially living in the States, that I'm always under.
Mhm.
Like at any moment, my life could change because I'm a melanated person living in a world that is not friendly to melanated people, right? So, but what I'm saying really is mostly like around if you find yourself getting super caught up in all of the political dynamic and your head is starting to spin, your heart is starting to spiral because your head's starting to spin. Most of it is happening because you're now in the energy of other people who don't like things to be unknown. They want to control the entire world.
Mhm.
And the reality is, you know less than you think you do. Just get comfortable with that shit.
Mhm.
Just get real comfortable with not knowing. Um, I sit a lot with the new moon. The new moon and I are like besties in terms of lunar phases.
Mhm.
And one of the reasons I love the new moon so much is because it's quiet. It's like a black hole. It's what I consider the black hole, which I usually call the
Yeah.
dark forest. So I sit in the dark cosmic forest a lot. A lot of my work comes directly from there.
Mhm.
And the reason I like going there is because there's a level of impermanence. There's a level of unknowing, but there's also a vast amount of creative and chaotic energy.
And fertility. Yeah.
And so I enjoy the combination, the dichotomies, and this kind of like all the energy, right? There's a song that I've been listening to recently. It's I appreciate all vibes, not just good vibes only. Because I know there's that whole camp of, oh, good vibes only. Don't bring your negative shit over here. And I'm like, you can't have good vibes without negative vibes. Like you've got to have a push and pull. The eroticism of life is the fucking tension. We don't get
Sure.
someone erotic to get your tension.
Agreed.
Why do you change tension? Does that make sense?
We don't get to climax without tension, right? And it's such a
Right.
dynamic. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I deal a lot with arousal, not just in the sexual sense, although of course, folks tend to hear arousal and only think about it sexually, but like the reality is, again, like the earth is in a constant state of ecstasy and arousal because there's pressure systems, there's tectonic plates, there's ocean. I mean, you don't have ocean tides without friction. So it's like, I gotta remind humans that, like, if you really center yourself in the vast amount of different energies that are present in your environment, I mean, it is an ecstatic place to be. And you can arouse yourself on a daily basis and be a lot of joy because of that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, and I feel like fear, you could totally funnel that into, a more like aroused energy and, kind of use it as activation rather than something that's like tormenting you. It kind of makes me think about I've been moonlighting a little bit this holistic treatment center that I worked at, and we do DBT therapy. And I remember when I was first training and people would come in with these really impossible situations, just so much trauma, a lifetime of it, and not a lot of support, not a lot of curative factors. And I would just go, what's she going to say to this person, And it was always like, what skills are you using? And can we radically accept this? And radical acceptance is the answer. And it kind of made me think about when you were talking about radical self-love, because I definitely had the view like radical self-love is like self-care and self-soothing and like,
mhm.
the kind of more, goddessy stuff of, a spa day or something like that. But I've really come to, especially since we're going through a more difficult year, just the radical self-love is just accepting it all, the parts that you don't want, the shadows, like the stuff you don't want to show people, like that stuff is beautiful just as much. And so I feel like we don't hear that version of radical self-love much, and we get caught into the let's do our nails sort of stuff, which I mean, that can obviously be pleasurable and fun and self-soothing.
I,
And, it's deeper than that.
well, it's interesting. I had a conversation recently with another like colleague of mine, and it was based off of, she had done a TikTok around just sort of like noticing your own patterning of attraction.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting to me because that's something that I've been working on, like working around and through and up and down. Really so. And I told her, I was like, oh, this has been a hilarious ride. Because that was my real response. And she was like, what was hilarious to you? And I was like, the whole process. But again, there's a level of self-acceptance for myself. So as I journey, I find, because I really do find myself ridiculous. Like the human things that I do are absolutely ridiculous. And I find them hilarious. And I have a lot of fun with them. And that's also a choice, right? Like I'm just kind of minded towards, even it might be sort of ugly or sort of like mischievous. And I will be laughing to myself because I'm having this realization like, oh, that's mischievous. Like, where did you act with this coming out of, But it also, that humor helps me stay curious.
Yeah.
And the humor actually allows me to open my heart up a little bit more and get really deep with who I actually am
Yeah.
and being really okay with that.
Oh, what a journey. Yeah, whenever I teach mindfulness, I was like the shortcut to mindfulness, because that's a big part of DBT is, when you're curious and not judgmental, you're in mindfulness. So that lighthearted, laughter definitely is the gateway there. And then also just staying in your senses and out of your head, like really
Right.
in like experience of things versus just, I feel like so many people are just almost like head, disconnected from their body and from their entire essence.
Well,
Because
it's
we've been
interesting too, because one of the mainstays of colonialism was beheading. There's a lot of beheading.
oh,
And when you look at old statues, ancient statues, what's usually going on with the female? They don't have a fucking head, right?
oh,
There's an actual energetic, and there was like a directed, targeted reason for them practicing that. Absolutely. Because they want to cut the head from the body. They want to have their cerebral take over the nature. And you see it at the macro level, and you see it again at the micro level. You
mhm,
see it in the nuclear family situation. So, I mean, again, I always err on the side of if you're going to take a look at yourself, you also want to take a look at some of the factors that shape who you actually are. And then you can start kind of unraveling who am I versus who I've been conditioned to be,
Mhm.
right? Because none of us are outside of the spectrum of colonialism, white supremacy tactics,
Mhm.
oppressive laws, and, there's lots of other subcategories under that. Right? The subcategories abound. You get the nitty gritty, but the reality is that most of the world has been colonized to some degree, which also means they've also experienced a level of what we call here white supremacy tactics. And so, you have to accept that this is what has been conditioned for the majority of us
Right.
for so long. And even if you're trying to remember your indigenous roots, to remember who you are outside of these spectrums still have an interplay. It's just, and along with the other, so the trifecta that I usually talk about is colonialism, white supremacy tactics, and capitalism. Because
Mhm.
capitalism
No.
was never good. Again, like you've got to understand your dynamic within the larger oppressive sort of conditioning in order to start, unraveling yourself
Mhm.
from yourself in a way.
Well, and I think that that's sort of the getting everyone to chase money and sort of working in that sort of capitalist framework, it can be very disempowering. And then, whenever I feel like one of my number one soapbox things is to try to encourage people into entrepreneurship. And a lot of my clients who are working in the corporate system, they're killing themselves and they could be replaced tomorrow. And, they're making someone
Right.
else very rich. So,
Right.
I think it is, I feel like this is such a huge part of the revolution to recognize those things and then, create new systems
Yeah,
that allow.
because the system as we know, the system of capitalism as we know it, it's very much a right.
Yeah.
Right. For those that are trying to tap into a certain tier, if you
Mm.
will, a tier of the capitalistic structure, there's sacrifices that are going to be asked of you in order to make it to that tier. It
Mhm.
doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have to have a personal relationship with money that is based on oppression.
Mhm.
Because capitalism really is, I'm going to step on you so that I can stand higher,
Mhm.
right? As we know it, as it's been practiced and as we know it. It's I'm gonna steal your resources over here and pass it off as my own, so now I have wealth. That's
Yeah.
the system that we've all come to understand. That's the system that we've been living in. And so it's interesting because one of the things that I've been working with those that are on this equity of exchange when it comes to like spiritual practicing and self awareness is their relationship to money, but also their relationship to capitalistic structures. Because those two things are different energies. That doesn't mean that they don't share some similar, it's like the Venn diagram, right? Everything has a window of compatibility where we might be sharing some piece of it, but energetically they're a little bit different. And so we've been talking a lot about, especially going into springtime and summer, which are like, sun is high. And so, opportunity abounds because everything is lit up because the sun is high. Yay! Like romance is in the air. Like I was the same.
Mhm.
And those things get a lot more expansive when you can kind of understand your internal processing around the systems that you've just been sort of like, pushed into accepting.
Mhm.
And it's really interesting to watch as you unravel some of those internal conditioning, your relationship to other humans and what you're able to offer and the conversations that you're able to have and your comfortability level with, like I said, offering an actual equity of exchange. I even use this in like my current dating life and not that everyone understands what that means, but for me, that's standard. So if you're coming into my energy field, what is the equity of exchange here? Right. And sometimes it's oh, I might have met you in my dating world, but actually you're a little bit more of a colleague, right? So like, it might just be like, I have a lot of wisdom and I own that. But I know that. And when people meet me, typically they can see that up front. And so for those that need that wisdom, it's like, what skill set can we exchange that for? Is it easier for you to exchange money? Or is it easier for you to exchange time or another skill?
Mhm.
And so I have these conversations with other individuals as well, because those kinds of negotiation type conversations around where is the equity of exchange and energy is a partnership, and it starts to walk you into relationship. And that is actually what is needed between human beings.
Mhm.
And so you're already sort of practicing this sort of like step outside of capitalism as we know it, because
Mhm.
we're having and negotiating this stuff. And there's no force and there's no oppression.
Mhm. I think
So
that's really exciting about like the creator economy because, AI, good or bad or whatever, I do think it's going to replace a lot of what used to be like the professional, secure positions that people strive for. And I think what's going to be left is like art and the healers and the things that only humans can do? And so,
I mean, I'm with you on that. I really hope that that's what AI ends up being used for, because machine learning first of all, machine learning has been going on
yeah.
for a long time. That is not necessarily anything new. What's new about it is the sort of confluence of being able to use algorithms more targetedly, because they have the access to do that and they've got the systems to do that and all of that thing and all of the sort of the background tech that goes into making that assessment has taken years of research and, exploration.
Mhm.
But I also am on the mindset, like, and I pray about this. Like, this is one of those things where I'm actively, when I do certain work, it's like, I'm always asking for the oceans to be able to be clear of debris and for the marine life to be able to, breathe in the way that they breathe and to have access to their own waters again, and for us to stop polluting. But also, if that goes for tech, because we pollute tech the way that we pollute the earth.
Mhm.
And you can pollute an algorithm from that get start, just the way that you pollute earth, or you pollute a system, or you pollute a law, right? Where you're inherently adding oppression tactics and or bias into whatever you're doing. And so
Right.
I'm always actively sort of asking whoever is working in that field, just, in some of my devotional work, like, can we make space
Mhm.
for really having integration of equity in the algorithms that you're using or in the AI that you're using? Because I would love to see AI being used more successfully for us not having to do busy work,
Right.
basically,
Agreed.
right? I mean, get rid of all of or make it work for humans, not against humans.
Right.
Because I also agree that I would love to see more humans just doing art and not having to work 8
Yeah.
hours a day, slaving away for pennies on the dollar that they don't eat and they still can't eat. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? I would much rather see the world where it's, yeah, AI is functioning the way it needs to, in sort of like machine learning or farming or whatever it is. And the things that only humans can do, or the things that the labor that humanity and Earth should be taking on as, this sort of partnership. I would love to see that blossom a little bit more. Absolutely. I think that would just be amazing,
Mhm.
right? Amazing.
Well, I really appreciate you like expanding on the equity of exchange. I feel like it's such an important concept. And like you were saying, I mean, we just need like a system that's sustainable and that's, polluting the earth or our cultures or our family systems or environments, on all the levels that and
Right?
I do feel like we're in a time where a lot of these things are collapsing and sometimes like maybe not enough. And obviously we've had the ancestral history of generations and generations of potentially even like worse things than maybe what we're going through today. And so I feel like it is an exciting time to be, a creator and to like just really go for it. And I do think it's I'm hoping and wanting it to be, economically sustainable for us. So, us mamas can be, healing the world and feeding our babies, right? And not necessarily
Yeah,
having to do things we don't want to do. And like you said, that sacrifice, I feel that deeply, and it's so embedded, I think, particularly to women, but really,
yeah,
as part of a crucial part of the system for sure. So I'm excited to
absolutely.
see where it's going to go next. It's a little scary. Like, definitely the winds of change are upon us for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we're, I think collectively as Earth, there's been some heart opening. And so we're sort of in the season of having that heart open. And, the mind expansiveness piece has been going on for so long.
Mhm,
And but the heart opening piece is what moves your feet. Because when the heart pumps, the feet move. When the heart pumps, the body moves. And
mhm,
so we can live in our mind all day,
mhm,
but eventually you got to move your fucking feet. And that's kind of how I feel about the overall, not the global majority, I would say, but like, I would say that there's people of the global majority that have been on that perspective for a while. It's like, we're tired of watching the government research and research and research. And even like our fellow community member, it's like, it's time to get out of your head, stop researching and move your damn feet a little bit. You got to
mhm.
move your feet on what you've been talking about for the last 50 years,
Yeah, I love.
right? Because if you don't move your feet, nothing changes. And so that's kind of what I would, that would be my, as we deal with the new moon energy, the sun moving into Taurus,
Mhm,
and well as the eclipse sort of winding down,
mhm.
right? I would really say, open the door to moving your feet more.
I'm gonna put that on my affirmation list. We're be that's so powerful. I really that's a nice one. I really like that. So, I don't know how much you wanna say about, some of the exciting new projects you have. Give me kind of a sneak peek. I'm not sure if it's entirely
I thank you for
public.
your sneak peek. Yes,
So I'll
yes.
just turn it over to you. Where do you wanna go with.
Well, thank you. So for anybody who's interested in like hearing a little bit more of my voice or seeing more of my work, you can access my Patreon. I do have different tiers where you can subscribe and become a member. And I really put my work on Patreon because I know that my work won't be stolen, right? And because a lot of the work that I do is specific toward certain commission pieces or certain collections, it is as an artist it made a lot of sense for me to stay on Patreon so I could manage my work and it's mine. So that's where you can find me. I will be launching a YouTube channel doing sort of like an art and variety show. And I'm hoping to get that out probably during the summer. But again, right now it's like you can hit me up on Patreon, you can ask for a commission, you can buy a piece, and you'll get all the details about when I end up launching. And probably some of the test videos that I will be doing will be popping up over there as well. Because I'm not really on Facebook anymore and I'm not really on Instagram anymore, but I'm definitely on Patreon. And so I'll
Well,
just send you the
yeah,
information
put it in the show
and you
notes.
can,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
I was just kind
Oh,
of flashing to like when you and I first met, and it was in the mastermind, and we did one of those like breakout rooms, and we ended up kind of in a little bit of a screen on screen action like we are now. I just
yeah.
remember it being like such a powerful connection and agreed. You're so smart. You have so much wisdom. Like I can really feel, the ancestral wisdom that comes through you and your art is so powerful. And it's been such a joy to reconnect. And, I think you are such an incredible, powerful woman. And I think people need that. And so,
Oh, thank
don't you
you.
know?
I
Yeah.
appreciate it
Oh,
so
and I
much.
love, gosh, the world needs more art, right? And healing. Like, I feel like those definitely could be two of the biggest solutions if we're going to go from that point of view, and it's
Right.
just, like you said, it's the heart openers, and I think those are two really powerful conduits to doing that. So, thank you so much for sharing space with me and being my first podcast back. I feel like that was super divine timing. And, just thank you again for
Absolutely.
sharing your wisdom. And, you're so, just like passionate and embodied and, just very, like, I never know what's going to come out of your mouth. And I always in the best way possible. You know what I mean? Sometimes you know
Yeah.
where the conversation is going kind of thing, but wow, I mean, you just have such a clear channel. Like it's so powerful to just hear you speak. So yeah,
Thank you.
everyone go sign up and buy some art, support your local, artists and business owner and mamas as we are, working for the matriarchy and for powerful evolution that we're all going in together. So
Absolutely. And thank you again for inviting me and for hosting this. And you've been really working hard to have a voice out there on the internet and on the podcast. And I'm just enamored with that process. So
oh, thank you.
super excited to be here.
Well, gosh, I mean, it's fun for me because, to get to share these conversations like with the world, like it's just a pleasure to have the conversation itself. And then if the world gets to benefit, then that's even better, and it kind of has
Yeah.
been the best kept secret, but I know like that's not going to be like forever, you know, the algorithms, will eventually, pick it up and push it out to the world. And I definitely see that in the future. And so I think for me, it's just been the preparation of building up my energy field to be able to hold that kind of
Right.
energy. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Of witnessed in that way and, consumed in a
Absolutely.
certain
And having
way.
the eyes on this, it's also expanding your capacity for the gain that comes with a certain level of
Yeah.
fandom and fame, right?
Yeah.
So absolutely. Yeah. I love that.
Awesome. Well, I would love to do some more sharing time with you. So definitely would love to reconnect and we'll list all of the stuff in the show notes and description and all that good stuff. And go check out
Great.
Nicole. She is an incredible leader and I'm honored to have you as a colleague. And thank you so much for being my first episode back. What a fun, like comforting, inspiring, and powerful way to start. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Divine Feminine Revolution podcast. Make sure to subscribe and leave a 5-star review. Want to keep the conversation flowing? Find us on Facebook at the Divine Feminine Revolution Facebook group, where revolutionary women gather to listen to their hearts, monetize their gifts, and change the world.